Hello again. I am back and we are ready to get into this utility belt. And just picking up, if you watched the last video, I made a note that the paint that I already had mixed that I had used to paint these interior straps on the straps on the interior of the arms, I was going to use this exact same paint and dry brush this brown leather leatherish material here on the utility belt. So I've got my one of my favorite dry brushing brushes here. It is a Royal and Langnickel. It says number 2 on here. It is a flat bristle, so I'm going to get in, then I'm going to pull off, and then I'm going to get right into it. And I'm going to just rotate the figure about, and then I'm going to get right into it. And as I can see with my eye, and not 100% sure that the camera is picking this up, but the variation is really subtle, which is not a bad thing because as we get into putting multiple layers onto this utility belt, subtle is really key to giving it that dynamic edge and making it look realistic because we're going to have a gradient of color. And so this Gorthor brown is actually matching and tying in really, really nicely. So by dry brushing this on, I've got some light, and I'm going to try to rotate here and get some of these other areas. Now, some of these deeper areas in the crevices, it's okay to not get a lot of paint on those surfaces because our eye will naturally perceive those recess areas to have shadow on them. So I'm just being really intentional to just make sure I hit that edge of this utility belt where each one of those pouches or pockets are. And as a newer painter, if this feels a little bit unnatural, it's okay. You can actually go back in later on and add highlight. So if the amount of paint that you get on it now doesn't feel like it's enough, you can go back through and touch it again. And so the same thing with the bottom of the belt. I'm not going to be touching that with this lighter color because, again, when I think about light and where it's hitting, unless that light was coming from up from the bottom, which might not be the most natural case, so I'm going to leave that go. So we've got our dry brushing with the Gorthor brown over top of these pouches, and so these last little 3 right here, I am going to hit these that are right across the chest, and those are painted from the factory with a darker brown. So I want to be real intentional about making those stand out and be to differentiate from the ones around the waist. So you kind of see I'm using this counterclockwise motion. And for me, that's a really controlled motion. You can also go up and down like this, and we're getting a really broad stroke. And if you go gradually enough, and when I say gradual, I'm talking about the amount of distance between the brush, the bristle, and the surface. So the further away you are up and away, the lighter it is. But by being light and going like this, I'm actually finding that this is getting the desired effect that I want because I want to hit just these edges, just those really high points. And I'm actually really super happy with that. I hope that translates well on camera so that you can still see that there's a dark, kind of like German chocolate brown color that is German camo black brown, which is a Vallejo color. It's almost like identical, just from looking at this paint to what was factory. So that's really nice to know as well. So if I got super carried away, I have a paint that I can kind of go back and fix that. But for our intents and purposes, that right there, that is pretty close to perfect. And so with the rest of this paint that we have in our dish, we can rinse that out and carry on. So thanks again for tuning in. And in the next one, we will continue forward.